Hello everyone, today I want to share my Kazuha build and team compositions with you in this short guide. As always, I start with the build, then go over team compositions and show some Abyss gameplay at the end.
Clouds high, the birds call, one with nature.
As for the build, there are two options, and I think the one you want to aim for in the long run should be the high elemental mastery one, of course, to maximize Kazuha's elemental damage bonus buff. And before that, for any Kazuha build, you definitely want to make sure that you have enough energy recharge to get his elemental burst skill off reliably. I think at least 160%, but 180% is definitely a little bit more comfortable. Then for this build in particular, you want to have as much elemental mastery as possible, and if you have some substats to spare and crit rate or crit damage, it definitely helps as well, but it's more like a nice bonus. But of course, having this high elemental mastery on a 4-piece Viridescent set can be a little rough in the beginning, so while you farm for it, you can start off by your regular sub-DPS build like this Gene, for example. Just focus on attack, crit rate, crit damage. Of course, you want a better balance between these stats, and in his case, obviously, a Nemo damage bonus. As for talents, for any Kazuha build, it's definitely the highest priority to level up the Elemental Burst skill first, and then if you are on the Elemental Mastery build, you can definitely stop there. The Elemental skill into Plunging Attack Follow-up deals like no damage on that build, but if you are on a sub-DPS build with high attack and crit damage, you can definitely level up both of these, then it deals some respectable damage. Kazuha has actually some really good constellations early on. Constellation 1 resets the cooldown of the elemental skill after using the elemental burst skill, so it kind of works similar to Constellation 2 Ningguang, where she can place the jade screen into burst skill into another jade screen, elemental skill into burst skill into another elemental skill. This is obviously great for energy generation, so you can get away with building less energy recharge on Kazuha. Constellation 2 is also really good. It provides 200 elemental mastery to Kazuha and the active character standing in his elemental burst skill. Obviously, a lot of value locked behind the Constellation 2 is actually kind of crazy. And this is where I would stop, because then nothing interesting happens until you reach Constellation 6, which infuses Kazuha's normal attacks with Anemo damage, which basically means he can be a main DPS character. As for weapon options, I think it's really easy for Kazuha. He has a great option in the Iron Sting, which is craftable, so very accessible. But in case you're lacking a lot of energy recharge, you could also pick something like a Favonia sword or a sacrificial sword to fix that. And in case you want to deal some damage, you can obviously also pick something with crit rate, crit damage, or attack percentage as substat. As for artifacts, this is where the problem starts. As for substats, we already covered them earlier. As for main stats, as I said, you can start off with the regular sub-DPS build with like attack percentage, an emo damage bonus, and crit rate or crit damage, whichever one balances your stats better. But in the long run, you want to have triple elemental mastery main stats, so whenever you get something good, just replace it. And for the set, you definitely want the 4-piece Viridescent set. It is an Anemo support, so there is pretty much no second option. And of course, getting triple elemental mastery on this set is kind of a long grind, unfortunately. As for team compositions, most people like to play Bennett as healer, so I just stick to him for simplicity's sake here. As for Kazuha, he is your Viridescent set Anemo support. And to get value from that set, you definitely want to pair him with characters that deal Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro damage. And Kazuha can also apply a elemental damage bonus by swirling one of these elements. He can also swirl multiple elements and maintain multiple buffs at the same time, but it is obviously easier to only have one buff active, and the easiest way to do so is, for example, a mono electro team with a C6 Sarah and Raiden Shogun, for example, or something like a freeze team, and you pick something like, for example, Ayaka as your main DPS, and something like Yelan as your support. Obviously, if you have Mona, also great option. Jingshou would work as well. But you can definitely change up your freeze teams as you see fit. Of course, if you have Ganyu, you can play her instead of Ayaka, but this one in particular is one I want to highlight involving Kazuha. It's one of the later ones that is really strong. It is Ayaka, Shenhei, and if you have Kokomi, but Barbara works as well. Moving on from mono damage teams, for example, something like a Klee Overload team, or you can pick something like Rosaria and you have a Melt team going. And in these kind of team compositions, it's definitely worth it for Kazuha to have two active damage buffs at the same time, obviously for the pyro damage and the cryo damage in this case. But it is not the end of the world if you don't manage to do so in this team composition, but it definitely is a great benefit. And then there is the Vaporize team. Unfortunately, this one is a little finicky. Of course, Hu Tao deals a lot of damage in this team comp, so you want to make sure that you have the pyro damage bonus buff from Kazuha. But to make Hu Tao reliably be the one that vaporizes, you kind of want to infuse Kazuha's Elemental Burst skill with Hydro. And afterwards, you want to really quickly apply Pyro with Bennett by using his Elemental Burst skill and Elemental skill, and then instantly switch back to Kazuha to swirl it off to activate the Pyro damage buff. The timing on this is really rough. You need to be really fast because obviously Kazuha's Hydro-infused Elemental Burst skill vaporizes off Bennett's Pyro application really fast. As you see here, my Hu Tao has usually 60% Pyro damage bonus and 0% Hydro damage bonus, and she is buffed on both of them. So it is possible, but it is hard, and arguably in this team composition, it is way easier to just use Sucrose. And now for the showcase, Kazuha is really easy to use. His whole gimmick is increasing the elemental damage by triggering swirl reactions. So all you gotta do is apply the element that you want to be buffed. So for example, Electro, and then trigger a swirl reaction with his elemental burst skill or elemental skill. His elemental skill can be just pushed like this, or it can be held, which generates more energy, but it has more cooldown. It's only 9 seconds, so I think the extra energy generation is worth it. I would always hold it, honestly. And as you see, the elemental damage of Kajing is increased. She doesn't usually have 84% electro damage bonus. And for now, I'm gonna leave you with some Abyss gameplay and come back at the end.
Gotcha. As one with wind and cloud, the wind knows it.
Nowhere to hide. Speed of light. Teamwork is dreamwork.
Clouds high, the birds call into the wind.
Here. With swords of shadow. Hey! Everybody stand back. Let's light it up.
Fallen leaves, adorn my night, one with nature.
Things are about to get dicey. Quietly now. Nowhere to hide. Speed of light.
Alright, we made it to the end. I hope this gave you some inspiration for your own bits. Stay tuned for more videos. Until then, have fun and bye bye.